Welcome back to Get Mossed for our Week 3 recap and Week 4 projections. Today we do have a pretty big show. We have our highly anticipated interview with Daniel Hampton, the head coach of Daddy's team, as well as a few quotes from around the league. And without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to start out our recaps with the biggest blowout of the week. We did have Demardiac Arrest versus the Coblins. Demardiac Arrest scoring 157 points, Coblin scoring nearly 105. It was a huge carry from Hunter Henry, who scored 29 points this week, as well as Christian McCaffrey, who scored 24 points this week, Josh Allen, who scored 23 points, and you can't forget Devonta Smith, who scored 20. Looking over at the other side for Coblins, he did have Drake May score just under 20. Jalen Warren scored 13. Nico Collins with a big 22. Really hindered by Malik Neighbors injury. Held him to only 3.3 points. Outside of that, we can look at their benches here. Real missed opportunity not starting George Pickens, but you can't really expect Malik Neighbors to only go out there and score 3.3 points. With James Conner being out, though, we can see and expect George Pickens to be in the starting lineup from here on out, especially with the CD injury, which we will hear more about from Team Jalissa later on in the show. Moving on to our next biggest blowout of the week. It was kind of a surprise to us here in the studio. It was Widget scoring nearly 170 points this week to First Down Syndrome's 126.5. Widget was really helped out by a 27-point performance from Mark Andrews, 20 points from their kicker Chase McLaughlin, 15 from their defense, and a huge 29 from Caleb Williams. First Down Syndrome did get 27 from Lamar, 27 from Jameer, and 15, almost 16 from Chris Olave. And looking on the other side, he did get 25 points nearly from Garrett Wilson, who, breaking news, was involved in a trade to Steelers of Joy, who was then flipped in a package for Brock Bowers. That trade involved Brock Bowers and Michael Pittman Jr. going to Steelers of Joy for Garrett Wilson, Jordan Addison, and Quinshon Judkins. Moving on to our other team who got their first win of the season, it was Team Jalissa over Team Jennifer Aniston. Jalissa was really helped out by the Vikings defense scoring 32 points, scored over a third of what her opponent was able to score the entire week. Huge week from the Vikings defense. That being said, did suffer a huge blow to CeeDee Lamb, which I was able to get a quote from Jalissa regarding that injury. Team Jalissa would like to shout out CeeDee Lamb for all he's done so far this season. We are praying for him as he heals and are anticipating a quick return. Devontae Adams is ready to step up and fill Lamb's role this week. Don't count out Team Jalissa. We are improving each week and excited for what the rest of the season holds. Wise words coming from a head coach looking to rebound after a huge injury. Looking over at Jennifer Aniston's team, he did have Jalen Hurts score nearly 30, which, again, would be over a third of his total points for the week. Bucky Irving put up 14. DK Metcalf only put up 12. Looking at his bench, there isn't really much he could have done otherwise. Not many missed opportunities based on starts. You're not going to start like Io Maynor over anybody so far. Just hasn't quite shown to take a start from Deebo Samuel or DK Metcalf. Moving on to our Get Moss game of the week. We will admit it wasn't much of a game. We got the prediction wrong. We admit that. McElhaney continues his dominant run, sitting at 3-0 this week, scoring 122.3 to Ku Plan's 91.8. Really big performance from Jackson Smith and from James Cook, scoring 20 points. Looking over at the other side, Ku Clan did have Tyreek Hill finally do something, scored 16 points. Trey McBride scored 15 points. Just You can't really count on Jamar Chase only scoring 9 points. Did face the best defense in the league, other than the Cleveland Browns in the Vikings. Uh, so with Jake Browning, there's always going to be a question mark with him and T. Higgins. Looking at the benches, again, there wasn't much that Team Koopa Plan could have done that would have swayed this huge. Maybe starting Quentin Johnston over Jamar Chase, but you're just not going to do that. Not at this point in the season. Moving over to our surprise team of the year so far with Ricky Stenicki. They did beat Daddy's team 132.6 to 128.74. Daniel Jones continuing his run, scoring a little under 16. Jonathan Taylor looking absolutely dominant, scoring 32.8. Puka Nacua still scoring 22.8 as well. Keenan Allen, he did drop 19.5 as well. Didn't even have to play defense this week, and he still got the win. Looking over at Daddy's team, it's, again, a rough game. You just don't expect Saquon Barkley to only score 9.5. Drake London, again, Connor Mason effect, as we'll get into later, just held without anything. If he's in attendance, whoever's playing the Carolina Panthers, you're not scoring. They get a huge game from Daniel Hampton with the injury to Najee. Looking at his bench for missed opportunities, you have CTE, Cam Scatabo, but looking at his roster, there isn't many people you'd start him over except maybe Tony Pollard, which we could see coming here in the future. Moving into what should have been our game of the week, Diggs in a Blanket versus Steelers of Joy, decided by less than a point, and I know Steelers of Joy is going to love to hear this one. It was decided on a Derrick Henry fumble. That fumble, those points lost him this week. Like I said, sources did tell us that the head coach of Diggs in a Blanket was in attendance for that Atlanta-Carolina game where Bijan scored 16 points but didn't find the end zone. Like we said, it's the Connor Mason effect. A.J. Brown finally got it going. They were forced to pass the ball because they were down big. Scores 22.9 for him. And after the matchup this week, we were able to catch up with Connor Mason, the head coach of Diggs in a Blanket, who had this to say. I just want to say how proud I am of our team in last week's win. We never gave up, no matter what the circumstances were, but that is the standard here at Diggs in a Blanket. Expect that type of attitude from this team all year round, especially this week against a star veteran team in the Coblins. That is going to wrap up our recaps from week 3. Before we get into our week 4 projections, we will be airing our interview with Daniel Hampton. Enjoy. All right, we are here with Daniel Hampton, the head coach of Daddy's team, currently sitting at 1-2. What are your thoughts on the scrutiny that you're currently getting from all the other shows?
Honestly, as much as I hate to compare myself to this team that's very unlikable, but you know how when the Kansas City Chiefs are just winning everything?
Okay.
And Patrick Mahomes looked like the greatest quarterback that's ever existed.
Okay.
All everyone wanted to do was hate because they were jealous of the success. And when I won that title, I think public opinion really shifted on me.
Okay, so you say that everybody wanted to hate because they were winning.
Yes.
Like I said, you're currently 1-2, and you're still being hated.
Yes, but the hate started before week 1.
Okay.
That was actually when the hate was the strongest.
Okay.
Until I eventually shut that down in week 2.
Looking at your matchup last week, you lost to the surprise team of the year, Matthew Farley, with Ricky Stenicki. How do you expect to kind of bounce back after that loss?
You see, the thing about Ricky Stenicki, his players clearly just wanted it more. Okay. And it took, after the loss, we had to come in on Monday and take a hard look in the mirror and say, who do we want to be as a team?
And what was that?
We want to be a team that actually tries and gives a crap. That's what I had to say to our players. It's like, who do you want to be? And the players that don't want to try and give effort aren't going to be here anymore.
So what do you have to say to Saquon Barkley, who's supposed to be your top point scorer, and he only comes out and puts out 10 points last week?
We need more from our leaders. We need more from the leaders on our team that are going to step up and say, I'm not going to wait for everyone else to do what they need to do. I'm going to do what I need to do. And so I'm very confident in Saquon this week that he is going to bounce back. I mean, they're playing Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay has a very strong defense, but I don't think they're going to be able to withstand what Saquon's going to do to them this week.
Okay, I like that answer. Looking at your wide receiver room, you're kind of thin, but with Drake London, you started him last week. Michael Penix has had a good start to the year, and then comes out and scores 0 points. What is your thoughts with your wide receiver room moving forward? Are you looking to make a big splash trade, make some waiver wire pickups?
I have definitely been exploring the trade market. The problem is right now, the strength of my team is probably my running back room, and trying to transfer some of that depth into star power has been more difficult than I would have anticipated. But certainly there's concern with – I have no concern with Drake as a player, as a man. I think we have a very strong relationship. But the thing about Drake is Michael Penix is terrible. He's thrown 1 touchdown through 3 weeks, and that is a big concern. But now if we're talking to potential trade partners out there, I think things are going to turn around and it's going to be great. But in the reality of the situation is it's kind of tough. But to be honest, I don't have a choice. He's going to stay in the starting lineup because looking at my bench, there's nothing until Michael Golden starts to step up. It's gonna be Drake. He's gonna lead that wide receiver room. Him and Cortland Sutton both are co-captains in that room, and they're gonna have to lead us.
Yeah. So now we talked about your receivers. Let's talk about the people throwing the ball to your receivers. You currently have Dak Prescott as your starting quarterback. Are you regretting that decision?
I wasn't until especially once we saw how bad their defense is. Like a bad defense usually makes a good fantasy quarterback. But with CeeDee Lamb going down, it's really going to cause me to try to look and explore. But in our league, in the waiver wire is very thin. Like, what am I going to do? Take Dak out and start C.J. Stroud?
I'm thinking Tua Tagovailoa.
Do I put in Tua? Michael Penix, we know we ain't going for that Michael Penix London stack. There's absolutely no chance that's going to happen. Do I trust Geno Smith? Absolutely not. You see what he's doing to Brock Bowers.
Exactly.
So I cannot put him in there. Looking at this, what would you do if you were in my situation? What would you do to resolve the quarterback situation?
Here at the Get Moss Studio, we don't speculate on what other teams are going to do. We just report on what they do. So what I would say is, would you like to make an announcement to the rest of the league that you're open to making some trades with your depth at running back to kind of build up some of those weaker rooms?
Here's what I'll say. At Daddy's team, we are always looking to get better, and whether that's the guys that we currently have stepping up or the guys that are out there maybe on another team joining us. We're okay to whatever it takes to build our team, as long as they fit into the culture here that we've established at Daddy's team.
What is that culture? Winning a championship and starting slow, or bouncing back?
See, here's the thing, though, about the season. It's a long season, and 1-2 does not mean your season is over. We're just getting started. The culture here is a culture that we expect to either win or potentially be the worst team. There's not going to be much in between. Like, we take big shots. Big-time players take big-time shots, and that's what we do here at Daddy's team.
So you're either going to be the Kansas City Chiefs or the Cleveland Browns. You will not be the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Exactly. Like, we don't want to be stuck in mediocrity forever. We are either going to shoot to the top and do whatever it takes and go all in, or that's going to blow up in our faces and we're going to be the worst team in the league. There's not much of an in-between. That's not how I play the game.
So to kind of close this out, would you like to say anything to the rest of the league, possibly the other shows? What would you like to say?
To be honest, I don't think they have much room to talk. When you look at most of the league being 1-2, and also especially when it comes to the other shows and the disrespect that there's been, like the fact that they're going to talk crap to me when they haven't won anything, the people put on those shows, and then also the fact that they've been putting out content for a year, and a newcomer comes on the scene and outdoes them in 1 week. I don't think they have a lot to say to me about how I run my team. Now, when we get to the end of the season, and if I'm 1-16, then they can talk. But It's an early season.
I would like to ask you one more question. What did you think of the propaganda last week on the TC show about yourself?
Which accusation directly are you addressing?
I'm addressing where we don't know if it was the host of the TC show had dressed up as Daniel Hampton the head coach of Daddy's team, but was spewing propaganda. What do you have to say to respond to that?
In this world of AI, I just think it's really hard. It's really easy in journalism to just kind of throw out whatever and even follow stories or even make up stories. And that's clearly what the TC show has done. And so that's why, apart from them, begging for interviews for a year and a half, I've just never uh, given into that because I clearly don't respect how they put out, how they present their content and stuff. So that's why I'm just glad that we have real reporting in this league now.
You heard it here first from Daniel Hampton. He's getting a little tired of the propaganda. I would like to see it stop. That being said, if you want to keep doing it, it gives me more content. So that'll wrap up our interview with Daniel Hampton this week. I hope you all enjoyed it, and thanks for listening. And we are back, going straight into our projections. We're going to start with Daniel Hampton's team facing off against Steelers of Joy. Huge line here right now at 17.5. With the new addition of Brock Bowers in the lineup, we could see more of what he has been averaging this year at about 11 points. Or we see Geno Smith finally decide to throw him the ball. The line is large because Terry McLaurin is currently projected 0 points. He is still a kind of a game time decision this week. He has gotten off to kind of a rough start this year, so doesn't need a injury here. Would it be expected to put in a guy like Michael Pittman Jr., who just got in that trade. We're going to go over to Daddy's team here. Currently projected just under 120 points. Does have Saquon against a Tampa Bay defense. Amarian Hampton, who is now running back one due to a Najee injury. Ricky Pearsall was inserted into the lineup this week, who he has been going crazy this year, looking like a possible wide receiver one in San Francisco. Looking at the bench, I think they both have pretty optimized lineups. The only question mark here is Cam Scatterbo, but you're not going to bench any of them for Cam Scatterbo other than possibly Ricky Pearsall or Cortland Sutton. You move one of those around. But we are going to make our prediction this week with Daddy's team getting the win. We just like the depth of his starting lineup compared to Steelers of Joy. I think he rights his ship, goes to 2-2 when Steelers of Joy fall to 1-3. Going into our next projection, we have Team McElhaney currently sitting at 3-0. They are currently in second place, only behind DeMartiac Arrest. And going up against Team Jalissa, who got their first win of the season against Jennifer Aniston. Line is currently set at a little under 10 points. That loss to CeeDee Lamb, Jalissa will need a huge week from Romo Dunze if he can keep it up. Number 3 fantasy wide receiver this year. Vikings defense plays Pittsburgh, who has been kind of hit or miss on offense this year. And Chase Brown, no other option at halfback other than Chase Brown, really. But if he can find the end zone, he'll get you roughly 12 points this week. Looking at the other side, we have a very deep roster with Team Mac. You got Devon Achane, James Cook, both top 10 halfbacks. Jackson Smith, who's the number 5 wide receiver. And still the leader of White Boy of the Year, Brendan Aubrey, who is averaging 14 points as a kicker. Looking down at the bench, the only question mark would be if you start Jake Ferguson or not, really, for Cam McElhaney. For this one, we are going to go with the upset for Team Jalissa. I think David Montgomery kind of helps out against that tough Cleveland defense for Jahmyr Gibbs. Gets quite a bit of points. I think we see an upset this week. Cam Mack takes his first loss, and Jalissa goes to 2-2. Moving into our next largest line, we do have Jennifer Aniston versus Widget. Line currently projects Jennifer Aniston to win by a little over 8 points. We agree with the projection a little bit with Jalen Hurts and Tyler Warren combo there. His quarterback, tight end. We could see a swap in the starting lineup with Nick Chubb we just think there's better options on his bench for a flex position. Move Ashton Genty into the running back. But there also are more points for Widget, who did trade away Garrett Wilson in that big trade in the 3-team deal, 1-for-1 for Sam Laporta. The only question mark would be is if he starts Caleb Williams this week or if he goes back to Jaden Daniels if he's healthy. He does have Trey Benson, who's the lead back due to the James Conner injury. Looking to kind of maintain that pace where he scored nearly 170 points last week. We are going to go with Widget for this one. Widget moves to 2-2. Jennifer Aniston falls to 1-3 in our projections. Our next matchup, we're going to look at Ricky Stenicki versus Coop Cup Clan. Before we get into that, we do have a quote from the head coach of Ricky Stenicki. He says, "I'm proud of our team's resilience in another gritty, hard-fought battle versus Daddy's team. I'm proud of how we bounced back and think we can keep the momentum going versus Coop Cup Clan." That being said, let's get into the projections now. Ricky Stenicki is favored by 7 points nearly. Complete clean bill of health for both sides. No questionables, no outs in their starting lineup. Ricky Stenicki has the best fantasy running back and fantasy wide receiver, with another top 10 in Keenan Allen, and a top 10 tight end in Zach Ertz. Being able to have the luxury of having the best running back and best wide receiver is immense for Ricky Stenicki. Looking at the other side, you do have Coop Cup Clan, who is really relying on Jamar Chase to be that guy that he drafted him for. Just with Jake Browning, that injury to Joe Burrow, he's a big question mark now. Facing a tough Denver Broncos defense, like we mentioned earlier. Javonte Williams, who has been a surprise back in Dallas, looking to keep his season going. Looking at benches, the only thing we really have a question about here in the studio is if you go Quentin Johnston over a guy like Jacoby Myers because of how good of a season Quentin Johnston has started with. That's really our only thing. We are going to go with Ricky Stenicki in this one, moving to 3-1, and Cooper Plan falling to 1-3, just because he does have 2 number 1 players at their position. Moving to our penultimate matchup of the week, we have the Coblins versus Diggs in a Blanket. First, let's look at Coblins. He does have a banged up Malik Neighbors who, looking at his practice report, he did not participate today as of recording on Wednesday, but it doesn't look like he's in doubt to miss a game. Nico Collins, same thing, limited at practice today, but doesn't look like he is going to miss this Sunday's game. So little to no injury concern on that side. Still, it does have a top 10 quarterback in Drake May. Matt Prater, he's averaging roughly 10, 11 points this year. And 2 really good halfbacks, Kyrie Williams and Jalen Warren. Looking over to Diggs in a Blanket, he does have Patrick Mahomes, top 10 quarterback, Bijan Robinson, top 10 running back, and A.J. Brown, who looking to keep it going after that big game last week. Biggest question mark we have for Diggs in a Blanket is T. Higgins. Just with that injury to Joe Burrow we saw last week, they couldn't move the ball against that Vikings defense, and now they're facing another good defense in Denver. T. Higgins is a question mark. That being said, we are going to go to the Coblins here. We believe the Coblins get this win, move to 2-2 when Diggs in a Blanket falls to 1-2. Moving into our last and closest matchup of the week, we have First Down Syndrome versus Demarniac Arrest. The line is currently set at exactly 2 points. Both of these teams have deep rosters. We're seeing a matchup of the number 1 and number 2 fantasy quarterbacks, the number 4 and number 2 fantasy halfbacks, number 7 and number 2 fantasy wide receivers. Biggest question mark is if Hunter Henry can somewhat replicate his week last week. I wouldn't say it's a fluke because Drake May likes to target his tight ends. But if he can put up 20 points this week, I see Demarniac Arrest winning this no problem. That being said, here at the studio. We don't think he's going to score 20. We think that this matchup is going to fall on Monday nights. We think the Monday Night Football game will decide this matchup with Garrett Wilson and Jalen Waddle both playing against each other, and Will Lutz also kicking on Monday night. That being said, we are going to go with DeMardiac Arrest staying perfect on the season. First down syndrome dropping to 2-2. That is going to wrap up our projections for the week. Let's get into our highlights for this week. It was a huge, huge special teams week, as we all know. So let's get into it. Before we get into special teams, we're going to go to Mecca Buka. Great play again. Now we got some defensive plays. This is Isaiah Rodgers' second touchdown of the day. It was a scoop and score touchdown to extend a huge lead. Now we're going to go to a man who looked like he activated a star from Mario, Torrey Horton, taking off against the Saints special teams. He is gone. Easy 90-yard return for a punt return touchdown. Moving into our craziest play of the day, probably. A jump over block recovered by the same guy, takes it all the way for 6. And who would have thought the Cleveland Browns get something good? And then the rookie kicker bangs a 55-yard field goal.